back to another episode of Battle Talks Podcast. Today we have the legendary Leshaun Jenkins, Coach Leshaun Jenkins with me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be a guest on this renowned podcast, man. I'm really excited. I hope I can live up to the expectation.
No, you definitely can. That's why we wanted you on. It's been work in progress for a little while now. I wanted to get you closer to election time, but we'll discuss that too later on. But
Okay.
so yeah, we're just gonna go through, just speak a little bit about who you are, what you have going on, and kind of what you're aiming to do over the next few years. So just give them a little background about who you are, specifically like where you're from and your upbringing, and your household.
Okay. So that's a loaded question. So I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to just kind of answer it in little segments, and then you kind of can fill in. But anyway, so of course
Okay.
I'm LaShawn Jenkins, and I am a native of Edgecombe County. I grew up on the south end of the county, so that means I kind of matriculated through the schools on that end: Carver Elementary, South Edgecombe, Southwest Edgecombe. Um, after that, went on to East Carolina, dual studied history and political science. Thought I was on track to becoming the next great Johnny Cochran, but that wasn't meant to be. My mind was telling me make a lawyer, become a lawyer, and make a lot of money. My heart was telling me to become an educator and make a big impact. So I chose impact. Did that. Of course, through that is how I met you, which was a long time ago. Met you um, when you were a second grader in elementary school. Those of you that's going to watch this podcast, don't do the math. But yeah,
Not
so I
at
met
all.
you in second grade. I always throw this out and continue to throw it out. I knew when I met you in second grade that you were just destined to do great things. I saw it. But so after that, man, I've done some other educational things, over the course of time. I, eventually was able to go back to school and earn a master's degree in school administration at North Carolina State University. I've done a certification program at Harvard University in global education, and currently I am in a Haiti Global Studies program at UNC. It's a joint program at UNC Chapel Hill and Duke. So I will finish that program in 1 month, and if all goes well, I'll be starting a PhD program in August. So that's just me, man.
It's loaded you. No, that's cool. I know you spoke about Haiti a little bit, so I actually do want to jump into some of the work you've done, mission work
Mm,
in Rwanda. That was I learned the backstory about the whole Rwanda genocide from you and your class,
right.
um, and just seeing like the effects of it from then to now, and then how things are still kind of portraying over in Africa altogether. So, what kind of got you started in that space and kind of drove you to get started over there?
Good question, man. So I ever since I was a young boy, I always had a curiosity about the world. Very much was into social studies, which might be one of the reasons why I went on to be a history major and become a high school history teacher. But I always just had this interest in the world, but also always wanted to impact the world, so to speak. And so, um, just always had an interest for just different regions of the world. Of course, quite naturally, like growing up as an African American, like there was a curiosity about the African piece, so to speak. And so, as I kind of, like I said, as a dual major, history and political science, at East Carolina, I really got intrigued and got pulled into my political science classes. And I took a political science class called African Political Systems, where we learned about different genocides and different wars that had happened in Africa. And man, I remember in 1998. Again, don't do the math. I remember in 1998, my sophomore year at East Carolina, we started studying the Rwanda genocide, and I just it was something about that day. The light bulb just went off. Something ignited in me that made me want to know more about Rwanda, man. And so I almost became like, for lack of better terms, like possessed by like this drive to learn as much as I could about Rwanda. True story, 9 years later, I got an opportunity to go. In 2009, I'm on a plane on my way 18 hours to Kigali, Rwanda, which is the capital, and spent 8 days in Rwanda, in prisons all over the country, talking to convicted murderers, talking to scholars, talking to families about what it was like to live through the Rwanda genocide, what it was like to participate in the Rwanda genocide. And man, that really became like one of the more just one of the definitive moments of my academic career.
I, I mean, that was a loaded answer, and it's a loaded question. But no, like for sure that I can only imagine the type of mindset that changed. Once you get there, and I see people like, day to day people like us to like millionaires going over and just getting this experience to where it's like, man, we take so much for granted. We like they really like readjust their whole life because of what they go through, what they see over there
Right.
in Africa and in certain parts. And I don't want to get it
Right.
confused because a lot of people feel like Africa is also poor, but there are also a lot of rich parts of Africa too.
Right.
Let's get that out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
parts that you went to that are that what we see on TV that's portrayed as what Africa is um like what was the effect on that after like coming back your initial
Mhm.
session there going over like how was that?
So I'm gonna be honest. I still and believe it or not, like here it is. That was 2009. That was what 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I still had to pinch myself, and like it's still it was such a surreal experience. Like I still have to remind myself, like, dude, like your feet, you were in Africa, like you know what I'm saying. It's still surreal. It was a life changing experience. But one thing I will say is exactly right. Like since we're slaying giants, the first giant we need to slay is Africa is not one big country. Africa is a continent, and it's composed of 53 or maybe 54 countries. So we need to understand that there's 54 different personalities that live inside of Africa. And so a lot of times we look at Africans as like this one overarching people or this one overarching culture, and it's not, because there's Spanish speakers in Africa. There's people in Eritrea and Somalia who speak Italian. There's French speakers in Senegal and Rwanda. Like there's, I mean, in Angola they speak Portuguese. I mean, so in
Jeez.
Kenya they speak English. So we have to understand like that there's so many different pieces to the puzzle as it relates to Africa, which is one reason why I minored in African political systems, because I wanted to understand all the pieces to the African puzzle. But one thing it made me realize when I came back is that, and this is most people, the answer they expect is that, oh man, like people are poor and we should be grateful for what we have. This is what it taught me. It showed me what we didn't have. When I got
Mm.
back from Africa, it showed me that, you know what, we got the nice stuff, we got the nice materialism, but we don't have those intrinsic things, like pride in ourselves and like poise and drive, like work ethic. Like I saw people building houses with no machinery off of sheer genius. That means like measuring stuff off of sheer genius, not with yardsticks, not with like tape measures. I saw people building houses with just their hand and their mind, and that blew my mind that like people can be that intellectual. And so I wrote in my journal. It's funny. I was just reading my journal the other night that I wrote while I was in Africa. Sometimes I revisit that journal just to kind of just see how I've grown or see how I've regressed. But I wrote that we excel. We are 200 to 300 years advanced in terms of like our advancement, technological advancement, in terms of Africa, but we lag centuries behind Africans in terms of those intrinsic values, family values, motivation, drive, work ethic. And so I didn't come back thinking about how grateful I should be of what I have. I came back realizing what I needed to do to get the things I didn't have. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. That and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, honestly, because there's so many things that us as a black culture are missing,
Yeah.
from family, personal, career. Like it is, and we see it all the time. Like what we're missing in other cultures, in other countries, like you said, even outside of those countries in within Africa. But I think the biggest thing that we mishandle or misconcept is that we can't get there or
Mm.
that we don't have issues.
Right.
Honestly, I some people feel like we're just doing fine, but
Right.
in terms, financially and lifestyle wise or, morally and values, we're like centuries away from what we should be and how it should be. And like today, I know I'm like in this millennial culture, but there's a lot of people that feel like in this era that social media is to blame for a lot of stuff we've
Mm.
done and kind of how it's pushed us backwards some. But I want to segue that into people may not know you were my basketball coach as well in high school at Tarboro High, and just kind of, I want you to give some insight to how you feel sports, um, how sports can be transitioned over, and the type of lesson that you can learn to become an adult, moving on to your adult life. I know what it's taught me, but I want to see your opinion on, how that has been, and what you've seen in kids and yourself actually.
I'm glad that was a perfect segue into something that into something that I'm still very passionate about. I still when I think about, like, even though right now, like, I'm not a coach right now, in terms of like activity. Like, I'm gonna always be a coach. Like, I
Right,
find
right.
myself coaching people every day. So, but one thing that I think that sports can be a powerful, powerful tool, and I think a lot of times we think that sports should be a tool to use um, to build character, but I think sports should be a tool that we should use to reveal character. And so it's just like, oh, okay, hey, go to basketball practice and work really hard, right? Oh yeah, we're gonna work really hard. But see, the revelation of who you are doesn't happen until practice ends. So that's why when you were playing for me, like that's why, like, during your classes during my planning period, that's why I was walking around with my notepad, peeping in your classroom windows to see how you were conducting yourself, to see if you were raising your hand, participating, because I know that I can get you to do anything on the court. But if you don't carry that same mantra and that same mentality to your other areas of your life, then that means that what's happening on the court is really not powerful as we're making it out to be. So I kind of sometimes challenge people, and I get a lot of pushback on it. Like, yeah, I know that sports can develop character, but see, when you show up at a practice, that's not where your character develops. That's where you bring your character and your character gets refined. But if I got to help you find your character and define your character, then that's a problem, because guess what? I'm not going to always be your coach. And if you give me the power to define and refine who you are, then what happens when I'm no longer there? Then that means that the next person that comes into contact with you will prescribe anything on you and will diagnose any identity on you. And now every time someone is in control of you, you find yourself having to shift your paradigm to be somebody that you never knew you could be in the first place. So now when you show up, you better bring your character with you, and I will help you build on that. But if you don't have a character, then guess what? You're probably in the wrong spot. And so as coaches, we need to make sure that we are using sports to reveal character and not always build it.
No, I definitely agree. Actually, thinking about that, like now, because I played, basketball and football, just from high school, college level, like just seeing that does actually make a lot of sense, because there's always the kid that's like the super talented one that doesn't have to work at it in the weight room or during practice or after practice. They just have this God given talent. There's always the kid that's super hardworking, super
Mm,
motivated, but doesn't have the skill.
hmm.
Uh, and then there's the ones in between that are a little on one side more than the other. But that, like you said, that definitely defines it doesn't define, but it just reveals who their characters are, and even
Right.
shows after sports is over. Like
Mhm.
it's, we hate to say it, but it's a time where athletics is no longer a part of your life as an
Right.
athlete, as a
Right.
you
Right.
try to coach or whatever later on, but as you're being an athlete is not. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing for me, and just learning how, like you said, just learning who you are. Like it's a self development of your character that you actually go
Mhm.
through as well through sports, that you are able to transfer over into your personal
That's
life,
right.
family life, and all that good stuff. So um, definitely, and I wanted to move again out of that space, but closer to around, like what you're doing now. I know you began speaking as well. I haven't had a chance to see you speak yet, but I know there are powerful sessions going on. So no, I definitely want to check that out. But what kind of led you into that space to kind of become more of a speaker? Probably it
That's
probably was involuntarily, but I know
Well,
how.
what led me to in that space is so I guess I'm coined as like a motivational speaker, and so to be honest with Kevis, ever since I was a kid, I've always had a lot to say, and not so much like in a bad way, like not like, oh, this kid who always got to get the last word, or this
Yeah.
kid at all. In fact, I was a very shy kid, and honestly, I remember teachers kind of had to pull my teeth to get me to talk in class, but I always had a lot to say. Like I felt like I always had a lot to say, and that message was always something good. Like I remember growing up as a kid, like When me and my friends would be plotting, to do something that we probably shouldn't be doing, like I was the voice of reason. I was the one saying, like, listen, guys, we shouldn't do this. I don't like literally true story. True story. I gotta tell the story. True story. Me and probably three of my childhood friends were sitting on the steps in the apartment complex we grew up with, and we were talking about. Honestly, I think we were talking about like taking somebody's bike or something, And I know this podcast is going to be shared like around the world. So people are like, what Yeah. I grew up in the hood.
It happens.
Stealing somebody's bike. Okay. But anyway, the more to the story was, I remember saying, guys, like, look, like we don't need to do this. Cause like, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, one day we could end up in jail. And one of my friends said, man, he was like, shut up, man. You always sounding like Jesse. Man, he said, you're always thinking you Jesse Jackson or somebody. You know what I'm saying? But so even at like 10 or 11, I found myself like I had a desire to like encourage people. And so um as I'm and honestly, and just thankful to God, like as I matriculated through my professional career, just super successful in the classroom, super successful as a coach, and just honestly like received some recognitions that I don't even know if that moment that I felt like I was really worthy of, but because my platform began to grow, and because my voice, I began to discover my voice of who I was. People began to seek out to me. Like so, my first speaking engagement, never forget, was like a youth night at like a church, and I never forget it. It started there, man. I remember like completely going. I didn't know what to speak about. You know what I'm saying? But I still remember what I wore. I still remember everything. But it started there, man. So that has led to like, man, it's just led to like something really, truly like inspiring. Like from I've spoken at youth events, I've spoken to panels, I got a national conference I'm speaking at next month. Just my voice has taken me a lot of places,
Yeah.
and one thing I like to tell people is it's not always about your ability though. Sometimes it's about your availability. Sometimes it's just your willingness to say, you know what? Yeah, I'll be courageous enough to say what people aren't willing to say. I'll be brave enough to stand when people want to sit down. And I think that some doors don't open because you have the key. I think that like some doors open like magnetically. I believe that if there's something in you that resonates with something in the door, then sometimes the door will open for you. And I just think that I can't take any credit for it. I think that was just the divine plan that God had for my life and the gift of encouraging and motivating that He's given me. And I just walk in it. So
Yeah. Nah, so it's crazy that you say that, but that's kind of how like this podcast came apart too. Like my first speaking engagement was really at a church that I was invited to by you.
sir.
So like I said, I remember the same type of thing, and people may not know like our personal relationship outside of that. Like you've been a mentor since I was a kid, but
Mhm.
a lot of those qualities that you saw in yourself, that's kind of what brought us to this place where we are in our relationship. But that was my first speaking engagement, and
Wow.
since then I've spoken probably a couple times. I've been a part of the mentoring program that I am now because I was invited to a speaking engagement here in Durham. Recently, I spoke to See the Year, America's program in Miami. I was invited from a college friend of mine. So like I've had those types of spaces, and I think it's the same thing. Like you said, a lot of times it's been the people that don't say much a lot of times but have things to say. But I think it's really been because we may not be the majority of what people are saying or what people are doing
Mm,
of,
good.
well, I don't want to say anything because everybody's going over here. 85% of the people are moving this way. I'm the 15 left or the
Mm,
5% that's left in that space. So, like I've grown to get the encouragement. So like I spoke to someone before on one of my previous episodes, Kelsey, she was saying like how it's basically using your platform, whatever that may
mm,
be, whatever that may look like, if it's you speaking engagements, if it's me doing podcasts, if it's Joe around the corner, just speaking to kids or being a coach, whatever that space may be. But that's our platform to kind of give
that's
people,
good.
some enlightenment to to be more, to do what they
That's right.
feel like they can be. And again, like this is what this podcast was about, like to show people those journeys and how they can relate. There's somebody that feels like we feel or just been through what we've been through, from the sports athletic arena to education or technology or whatever it may be. So I think that's definitely a way to get your voice out regardless of what you have, and that's the benefit of social media as well. I feel like
Right.
people have may not had a voice before have that voice
Mhm.
now. You know,
That's
from
right.
YouTube to Instagram to Twitter or whatever. You know, so I think that's definitely a way for the people that didn't speak much to get that place across. Um, so
That's good. I'm glad. I mean, I think that's social media is just like anything else. I
yeah,
mean, if used properly, it can be pretty powerful. But
yeah,
if misused, it could be, it could be damaging. So to hear you talk about I didn't know that was your first speaking engagement, but it makes me happy because, again, like I have literally seen you metamorphosize from let me see, what grade? How old are you in second grade? Like
er,
7 years old, 8 years old,
yeah,
7?
right, 7 to 8, yep,
I've seen
probably
you
7.
grow from a 7-year-old kid through elementary school, through middle school, and then getting a chance to coach you in high school and getting a chance to like mentor you. It's just kind of cool to see that like all the things I used to say to you, like when you were young, I don't know if you really understood it then, but for me, it's pretty powerful to see like that all those things that I saw that maybe you didn't see, like just seeing them like really blossom into fruition, like it's pretty powerful. So I just kind of want to get that podcast pitch in. Like I don't know if this will go down as the greatest podcast ever, but for me, like seeing a kid who I have like literally like sewn into like forever is it's pretty powerful. So good job, man.
I appreciate it. You were definitely a big part of that for sure. You were that father figure, that I kind of had throughout, in my immediate area at the time. Like my dad is alive and present. We have a relationship, but I didn't live with him, so that relationship
Right.
was different. Um, and I think that's drawn me to become what I am. So a part of the reason why I kind of ask people about their upbringing, because a
Mhm.
lot of times it motivates us or gives us a job that we didn't even know that
That's
it
good.
gave us because of what we end up doing later on in life.
Right.
Um, and I think that's a part of the reason why I'm into mentorship so much, because of the fact of people like you or other mentors I've
Right.
dealt with. The benefit it's giving me, knowing like, there's somebody else that's going through this, or,
Mhm.
going through a situation that'll need that help too. So it's just extending a hand from a hand, that I was given to someone else
That's
in
good.
that space. Um, it's definitely worth the while, and having especially black males given to other black males, because
Sure.
we know we get a lot of scrutiny out here over a lot of things, and we're not what the news and social media or whatever portrays us to be a lot of times in society. So it's good to see somebody else in that space define the odds. You know what I mean? So that's definitely, like I said, I appreciate you for being that for me in my life. Um, and I just kind of want to say with that, into how do you think that your upbringing like kind of motivated you in ways, or kind of gave you values that you probably didn't even realize till like later on in life?
That's good. I'm glad you asked that question because oftentimes we think about what we have and what we had, and sometimes I didn't always think about what I didn't have and what impact that had on me. So of course, I always had a strong mom. I grew up in in a very disciplined household. My mom was a disciplinarian, so you already know she didn't play about grades. She didn't play about cleaning up. she she did not play, and so like honestly I didn't realize the seeds that she was planting in my life at that time. And so just and again, there's some things you don't realize until after they're gone. So of course my mom passed away about 2.5, maybe not quite 2.5, but maybe 2 years and 3 months ago. And now that she's gone, I realize like all the things that she planted in me and like how it's really powerful. And so what that I didn't realize is that like that's the thing that made me a great teacher, because of my discipline. Like it was nothing for me to come up to my classroom on a Saturday and Sunday and work so I could be the best. As a coach, it was nothing for me to 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 mentor my players, to take them to workouts, to take them to camp, coach them, work them out on the weekends. And I mean, it was nothing for me to give of myself, because I do believe that sometimes you have to be that seed of your own harvest. And if you're not willing to plant something, then you're not willing to reap anything. And so all of that like made me into like this guy. And I'll be honest, if I can be transparent, it might help somebody. But I I I became a person who didn't know how to turn it off. Like I didn't know how to stop the grind. Like I was
Mm,
always grinding. Even when I was supposed to be home resting in the recliner watching a good game, I'm on the laptop grinding. And I still struggle with that. Like I still struggle with like turning it off. And When my mom passed away, it actually intensified because it made me
Mm,
realize, like, wow, like we know we don't live forever, but when death hits you so close, it makes you realize that there's nothing keeping you other than
mhm,
just grace and mercy. So it really
mhm,
made me want to go harder. And so I'm always dealing with this dichotomy of like of grinding, but knowing how not to always grind. The second piece that really shaped me, which is probably what made me a great mentor, is that I grew up without my dad. And so sometimes you're and again, there people are gonna watch this podcast, and there's gonna be people who they might call you inbox and be like, man, I can't believe he said that, but I'm gonna say it because it's my truth. And for those of you who will see this podcast, the problem that we have sometimes in life is that we let people author our narratives when
mm,
the pen is in your hand. Since the
mm,
pen is in your hand, you got to write your narrative. You got to own your own truth. And if you let me tell your story, I might tell it wrong. I might leave some parts out. Not having my dad in my life, um, the man that he was, I'm gonna just put it this way: the man that he was, it was a blessing that he wasn't in my life because
mm,
he would have had a big impact on me, and I would have turned out completely different if he was my model to go by. He
mm.
was not the model that I needed in my life. I'm not saying that I didn't need a dad in my life.
Right.
He was not the model at that time that I needed. So what it taught me was that it didn't teach me, since I didn't have a dad to show me the man to be, the absent man showed me the man not to be.
Mm.
So everything that he didn't do, I did because I wanted to make sure that I was right. Easy little
Yeah.
equation. Like
Yeah.
he was
Right.
absent, he wasn't consistent, he wasn't present. So guess what? In everything I do, I want to be present. I want to be persistent. I want to be consistent. And so sometimes your biggest blessings don't come from the things that you have. Sometimes it comes from the things you don't have. And
Mhm.
so growing up with this strong workaholic in the form of my mom, growing up without this man who seemingly had it all materialistically, but clearly didn't have some internal things, or he wouldn't have neglected his number one priority, which was being a father. But nevertheless, we all had to find our pathway. It made me into a person that really appreciated everything that I have. The struggle was real growing up with a single mom. And I just knew that because of that, I wanted to not only get to the mountaintop, but when I got to the mountaintop, I didn't want to just pitch a tent and live there forever. When I get to my mountaintop, I go back to the bottom and I bring somebody up. And when I get them to the top, I go back to the bottom and I bring somebody up. And so that's my grind. Like I'm always looking for ways to like lift people up and to bring people to the very top of where they can coin as like their very best. If that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. And that was kind of what I was speaking about earlier about my situation as well, like not having him like in my household, but like him being there giving me lessons, you know what I mean? But also him not being able to give me lessons, things I've learned on my own, and vice versa. So like I said, same scenario for me, like kind of going through that space and I want people to realize that, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that things you may not have doesn't necessarily define who you are, but
Mm-hmm.
also it can
Mm-hmm.
define who you are to kind of make
Right.
you, gain things you didn't think you were probably capable of, or probably wouldn't have achieved, unless you went through that space and kind of had that self-talk grooming and you
Right.
know, misconcepted situations of what you thought it could be or what it really decided to be after the fact.
Right.
So it definitely was a benefit for that. And I just I wanna go over your time. I know you're busy as well, so the time I have left, just kind of speak about some things you're willing to work on going forward, and things you have personally or career wise that you want to do or get done. I know you mentioned PhD. Have you decided your school yet? I know you was thinking about that. So how is that going forward?
Okay, so right now, just some things that I want to do. So as you know, I have because my name is Leshaun, so I got this revelation in terms of like my brand, which is called motivation,
Hmm.
and it's just motivation with my name spelled at the end. And so I'm really doing a lot of like branding with that, doing a lot of like social promotion with that. In fact, my speaking engagements now, everything like I pretty much am branding under that motivation brand. This summer, I'm working on a leadership development program under that motivation brand for hand selected group of kids who really want to grow in their leadership capacity. I am in the process of filling out some PhD applications, and there are a few schools on my list. UNC Chapel Hill is on my list. Duke University is on my list. Georgetown is on my list. My top choice right now,
Yep.
if they let me in, is North Carolina A&T State
Okay.
University. That is my top choice. I'm very impressed with their program, and in fact, my application is due sometime next month, so I'm working on that right now. But I visited, even though the program at A&T would a lot of it would be online, but I really I like the campus, and so I would be able to go up to the campus, for different things. But North Carolina A&T is at the top of my list right now, so really looking to get into that PhD program. Um, just want to continue my motivational speaking, man. I've really been blessed. I've had a chance to speak at a lot of school districts. I spoke to all the middle schoolers in the neighboring county, like over 5,000 kids, maybe a month ago. So my platform is kind of growing. My audience is growing. I guess you can say like my territory is enlarging, and I just really want to. I don't want to fumble. You know what I'm saying? I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that I handle whenever I'm in a space to speak to someone. I don't necessarily want to speak about situations, but I want to be good enough to speak to their situations, and so I'm just enjoying the journey right now, man. It's just been a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
self discovery is really nice, man. Sometimes there's things in you and there's levels to you that you don't even really meet like all at once. Like, I mean, if you'd have told me in the third grade that like there's a motivational speaker that lives in you, like I would have probably, well, first of all, I wouldn't have said nothing because I was super quiet. And then I would have completely laughed because I'm like, I'm too shy to speak to people. So I know I'm
Right.
not going to be speaking. So it just goes to show like life is all about like this it's about growth and development. It's about metamorphosizing into all the levels that live inside of you. And so I'm just really excited because there's still some things that I'm really just discovering now, like in terms of like my talents and my skill sets and my gift sets. And so man, I just love that I am at a place where I can really live out my passions every day.
Yeah. No, that's a nice itinerary to have going on for yourself. I know you always always working doing stuff like you said. I think one of the things that we've both learned, and I hope people get a chance to see, like, it's good to grind. It's great to have, a plan of what you want to do, but to take those breaks, like you said, we get in that grind mode where let's grind,
Hmm.
and sometimes you end up crashing before you actually take a break. You know,
Hmm.
either voluntary or involuntary, like that break is going to come. So, I wish you all the best. Continue to do what you do. I appreciate you having me on the podcast today. Is there anything you want to leave? Any socials, email, people contact that may want to get you for a speaking engagement? Um,
So yeah, I mean, you can. I'm on Facebook and by my real name, Leshaun Jenkins. I know people have like aliases, but I'm
yeah,
really on Facebook. Leshaun Jenkins is my name. I'm on Twitter, and I don't really use my Twitter that much as like a platform, but I'll share it anyway. So it's Game Changer 1906 at Game Changer 1906. I use my Instagram heavily, and that's at Haiti Fan and the number two. And Hades, it's a really short word, but a lot of people don't understand there's an I in it. So it's HAI, HAI, fan,
yep,
and the number two. So Haiti fan two on Instagram, my name on Facebook. And so, but yeah, man, I just kind of want to just again thank you for not just having me up here, but again, like when people have seen your beginning, and have a snapshot of your now, like that's quite special. And so I'm just to kind of see you have like grown into like this confident young man who has launched his own podcast. Like, and first of all, I think Battle Talks. I mean, it's just such a great play on words. Like that's so creative. I like that kind of stuff. But I just remember just to kind of, I just remember having that conversation with you in front of your house, your 10th grade year, remember? And I
yep.
just
And the
reminded,
red truck.
yeah, in my red truck, may it rest in peace. I don't have a red truck anymore. But I remember telling you that like it's not always the person who's in the limelight and in the spotlight. You know what I'm saying? It's not always the person who's the household name. But I reminded you that, regardless of where you are, you will have your time to shine. And I think it's safe to say, if my memory serves me correctly, like multiple state championships, athlete of the year. I mean, like you went on and had a pretty as I would pretty much say, like one day you had a Hall of Fame career. And so I'm glad that you had enough confidence to believe in you, and not base where you could go on other people and what other people had. And so what I want to say to people who might watch this podcast is, it doesn't matter what talent I have. It doesn't matter what talent you have, Lakevius. What matters is what is intrinsically ingrained in you. And whatever is in you, that is more than enough to take you where you need to go. And your journey and your destination, it may not be like mine. You may never travel to different parts of the world. Maybe your destination is at the end of your street corner and back. But your impact can be so impactful that you can impact more people on your street than someone might impact as they travel the world. And so
Yeah.
don't ever eye somebody else's journey. Don't ever eye somebody else's narrative. You pick the pen up, metaphorically speaking, and you write your own narrative. And when the opportunity presents itself, then you got to stand on your platform and you got to tell it, because there's no other truth like yours, and there's no better truth than the one that you can speak of. And the only truth you're equipped to speak on is your own. So, man, this has been like really been great. I like literally I had it marked on my planner. Like today, I was like really like looking forward. I was like, man, is it 3:30 yet? But this has been great, man. And I just encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. Let me know how I can sow into this vision of yours, and not even just I meant that monetarily, like if I can make a donation, but I also mean that like in terms of like any resources or any type of like connections that I may have that might grow Battle Talks. Let me know how I can support that.
Yeah, no, I always, we appreciate the gems. I don't want to overlook that. We definitely appreciate the gems. But I always, reconnect after or at the end of episodes and get a list of people that you may feel like, hey, this would be a great guy or great woman to have part of this episode. So we have some people coming up that that'll be some great ones coming along. We will have, I know I just talked to Marquetta. She'll be a part of it. Markel, being on Junte. So yeah, we have a few coming up, some others that are still in the works, but definitely some great people coming along from all walks of life. I don't want people
Right.
just to feel like it's athletes too. That's like my foundation, and I think that's where I've started a lot of the guests that I know, but definitely getting to see all parts of all walks of life
Right.
and their impact and what their journey has been like. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that,
That's
and
good. And I
these
think that
connections.
and I don't think you should deviate from that. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever that platform should be,
Yeah,
don't deviate from it. There's a
yeah,
reason why you had the vision and someone else didn't. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So I'm not trying to go church on nobody, but like, Moses had the vision. The other people didn't have it, but he let people talk him out of his vision, and that's when it went south. So it's your vision, and so you tread it the way you need to tread it. And even if I don't really see the vision, it wasn't for me to see anyway
That's
because it
right.
wasn't mine. So
Yep.
you stay the course. If you want to be all athletes, then it's gonna thrive. It doesn't matter who
Yeah.
you have up there. So and I certainly have some heavy hitters that I can add to your list who I know would be glad to come on to your podcast. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate having you on. And like I said, I'll put all your info up, contact information. Again, thank you, Coach Jenkins, Leshaun Jenkins, for having you on. And we'll speak soon.
all right, thanks, Lakevius.
No
Take
problem.
care.
Thank you, sir.